Hello everyone. In this section of your textbook, Chapter 2, Section 2.6 talks about determining common denominators and finding the least common denominators. In this video, I am going to deviate from the textbook. The method that they're showing there is definitely one that you can use, and if it is a preferred method for you, by all means, you're welcome to use it. However, I have found that many students are confused if they try and use this particular method for determining lowest common denominator or even determining common denominators. So I'm going to show you three methods that I have found my students really like, makes it easier for them, and basically they're able to solve the problem, because when we start adding and subtracting fractions, finding common denominator is key. So I'm going to talk about each of these methods. The first one, method one of the things many students fail to do is to take a look and see if they already have the lowest common denominator. How do you do that? With method one, basically, you're going to check and see if the denominator of one of the fractions divides evenly into the other denominator. And if it does, that denominator then is the lowest common denominator. So let's take a look at these two fractions. We have 2/3 and 4/15. So the question becomes, can 3 divide evenly into 15? So if we go ahead and we do that, we find that it does. So because of that, we then know that 15 is our lowest common denominator. So that's method one. Always begin by checking to see if one of the denominators can divide evenly into another denominator. However, sometimes that doesn't happen. And when that doesn't happen, then we can go ahead and we can take a look at methods 2 or 3. Either of these will work for you to find a common denominator, and sometimes a common denominator, when you use this method, will be the lowest one. The thing to remember really is if you get a common denominator, you need to look and see whether or not it can be reduced to lower terms, which we had previously talked about. So that's really the only added step that comes if you're not dealing with the lowest common denominator. So let's look at these two fractions. We have 2/3 and 1/4. So 3 can't divide evenly into 4, so we know that method is not going to work. So what we can do is we can go ahead, remember our multiplication tables, and we're going to go ahead and do our multiples of 3. So we have 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. Okay, we start to write them out. Sometimes it's necessary to continue even more. Our multiples of 4, 4, 8, 12, 16. So if we look, as we put both of these out there, what happens is, as we're looking at this, we notice the first number that appears in both of our multiples is 12. So actually, 12 becomes our lowest common multiple. And again, so long as you know your multiplication tables, this is a fairly straightforward, easy process. But this one will definitely get you to the lowest common denominator if you choose to use this one. However, sometimes our students, you might not be like right at hand at knowing your multiplication tables. Here's a third method that you can use, and also one that's very good. Sometimes it's just easier to go ahead and to get a common denominator, you're going to go ahead and you're going to multiply your denominators. So in this problem, we have 1/2 and 3/5. If I multiply 2 times 5, I'm going to get 10. And that lets me know that 10 is my common denominator. It also happens in this particular instance to be the lowest common denominator. So these are three different methods that I highlighted for you that you can use to help you get a common denominator when we need to have that particular process when we're adding and subtracting fractions. I also have in the PowerPoints for this particular section these methods as well that you can review. So that takes a look at determining common denominators and lowest common denominators in this video.